Brielle Thompson's heels slid out from under her just as her fingers reached for the icy railing, and she would have hit the pavement hard if it weren't for the strong arms that caught her mid-fall. "Whoa, careful," a deep voice said, his grip steady as steel. Her heart thudded in her ears as she found herself chest to chest with a man in a black tuxedo, his coat draped open, snowflakes clinging to his broad shoulders. His hand was firmly around her waist, and when she looked up, her breath caught again not from the cold. He was beautiful. In a dangerously expensive way. I'm so sorry," Brielle stammered, pushing her wind-blown curls out of her face. "The sidewalk's like glass, I noticed," he said, his lips lifting slightly but not quite a smile. "Are you hurt?" "No, just my pride." He helped her stand straight. She brushed the snow off her coat, cheeks burning. "I was just trying to get a peek inside," she admitted, glancing at the glittering building behind him. The glass windows revealed a ballroom glowing with chandeliers, filled with tuxedos, gowns, and string music. "I didn't realize the sidewalk was a death trap. You wanted to get in?" he asked. Brielle hesitated. "Not exactly. I was delivering pastries to the kitchen, but I got curious." His eyes flicked down to the plain black coat she wore, dotted with powdered sugar. "You're not on the guest list," she gave a laugh. "Definitely not." A beat passed, then he said, "Come inside." "What?" He slipped his hand into the pocket of his coat and pulled out a sleek black card. "You're with me," she blinked. "I can't seriously, I'm not dressed for it, and I just delivered mini cheesecakes. I owe you. You almost cracked your skull on my sidewalk." His eyes twinkled with something unreadable. "Besides, I'm curious." "About what?" He offered his arm. "About you." Brielle hesitated. Common sense screamed to walk away. But curiosity tugged harder. She took his arm. Inside the gala, the warmth soaked into her skin. The room was breathtaking, towering ceilings, marble floors, golden walls. Waiters in white gloves carried trays of champagne. A string quartet played near a grand staircase. Everyone looked like they belonged in a magazine. And next to her mystery tuxedo man, she felt like a stray cat that wandered into a jewelry store. He led her through the crowd like he owned it. "Wait," she whispered, tugging his arm. "Who are you?" He stopped beside an ice sculpture that looked like a frozen swan and turned to her. "Orion Maddox." Her jaw dropped. Orion Maddox. The billionaire real estate mogul. The man who had just made headlines for donating $20 million to rebuild a children's hospital. The man who was currently on the cover of half the magazines at the grocery store, and he just invited her into his gala. "You're him," he raised an eyebrow. "Guilty." Brielle exhaled. "I delivered pastries to your kitchen." "I'm not your type of guest." "You're exactly the kind of guest I want tonight." She looked up at him, unsure whether to laugh or run. "Why?" "Because you didn't pretend to know me, you didn't act impressed, you were just curious and honest." He paused. "Most people don't give me that anymore." A server stopped beside them. Orion took 2 champagne flutes and handed her one. "To near disasters," he said, raising his glass, "and unexpected guests." Brielle clinked his glass lightly. "To sidewalks with terrible maintenance." Despite herself, she laughed, and he did too. They found a quiet table tucked behind a velvet curtain. He asked questions about her bakery job, her favorite desserts, the worst customer she ever had. She found herself answering without overthinking, forgetting that she was across from one of the richest men in the country. "You don't seem like a billionaire," she said finally. "Do you want me to?" "No. Honestly, I thought you'd be cold or arrogant, and what do you think now?" "I think you're better at catching people than I expected." His eyes locked with hers. "I think you're better at surprising people than you know." For a moment, the music faded. The lights blurred. The sounds of clinking glasses and polite laughter disappeared until a sharp voice broke through. "There you are, Orion, everyone's waiting for your speech." A woman in a glittering silver dress approached, her eyes scanning Brielle with disapproval. "I'll be there in a moment," Orion said, not looking away from Brielle. The woman arched a brow and walked off. "You should go," Brielle said, setting her glass down. "This is your party. I want to stay." "You shouldn't." He studied her, then slowly stood. Will you be here when I get back? She hesitated. I don't know. His jaw clenched slightly, then he leaned in, his voice low, please. Don't leave yet. And then he was gone. Brielle stood alone by the curtain, heart racing. What was this? She didn't belong here. This wasn't her world. She made lattes and cleaned ovens and worked double shifts just to cover rent, but the way he looked at her. She turned to leave. Don't, came his voice behind her. She froze. I wasn't sure you'd actually come back, she said. I said I would. He stepped closer, the crowd fading behind him. Come with me. To where? Somewhere quieter. She followed him through a side door, down a hallway, and into a rooftop lounge. The city sparkled below, lights like stars. He handed her his coat. You're freezing, he said. She wrapped it around herself, inhaling the scent of his cologne. Why me? She asked. Out of all the people here. Because you didn't want anything from me. I didn't even know who you were, exactly. Silence stretched between them, then he said, I don't usually do this. What? Get caught off guard. She looked at him. Neither do I. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. But I've been thinking about you all evening. Brielle's breath caught. He leaned in. She didn't move. Their lips met, soft and tentative, the cold air forgotten. The kiss deepened, hunger and warmth and something dangerous slipping between them. When they finally pulled apart, she whispered, This doesn't make sense. I know, he said, but I don't care. And for the first time in a long time, neither did she. The next morning, Brielle stood in the narrow kitchen of Sweet Bean Bakery, her hands buried in a bowl of lemon scone dough, but her mind 1,000 miles away. Flour dusted her apron, speckled the counter, and clung to her eyelashes, but she didn't notice. She barely remembered biking to work in the early gray light or unlocking the side door with fingers still tingling from last night. Earth to Bry, called Tasha, her co-worker, as she slid a tray of croissants into the oven. You've been stirring that dough for 5 minutes. It's dead now, Brielle blinked. What? Tasha gave her a look. You okay? You look like someone kissed you and then dropped a chandelier on your head. Brielle didn't answer. Tasha narrowed her eyes. Wait, did someone kiss you? The bowl clattered into the sink. No. I mean, stop asking questions. Is he tall? Brielle turned and yanked open the fridge. Did he smell expensive? She slammed the door shut. Tasha, I knew it. You met someone. Spill. Brielle kept her eyes on the mixer. It's not a thing, it was one night. Tasha folded her arms. One night doesn't give you that. Dazed, just came back from the moon. Look. Who was he? Brielle hesitated. Orion Maddox. The silence that followed was thick enough to slice with a bread knife. You're lying, Tasha said flatly. I'm not. You kissed Orion Maddox. The man who built half of Manhattan. I didn't know it was him at first. Are you kidding me? I'd recognize that jawline from a moving train. Brielle dropped onto a stool, her voice quieter now. He showed up when I slipped outside the gala. I didn't mean to talk to him. It just happened. Tasha leaned against the counter. And now, I don't know, I left without saying goodbye. He let you walk away. He didn't want me to. Tasha stared. Girl, that man could date anyone. Models, heiresses, actresses with cheekbones sharp enough to slice brie. And he wanted you to stay. Brielle stood. I have deliveries to make. You're deflecting. I'm surviving. She grabbed a pastry box and headed for the back door, pushing the memory of Orion's lips from her mind, but it clung to her like steam on a window. Hours later, after climbing 3 flights of stairs to deliver cinnamon rolls to a law firm, she returned to the bakery's storefront and froze. A black Bentley was parked at the curb. Inside, a man in a charcoal overcoat stood beside the register, impeccable posture, dark hair slightly tousled, eyes scanning the display case like he owned the patent on desire. Orion, he turned as the bell above the door chimed. I wasn't sure this was the right place, he said. Brielle shut the door behind her. How did you find me? You said you delivered pastries. I asked which bakery handled the gala catering. You asked. I don't like guessing, he said simply. Tasha coughed loudly from behind the espresso machine. I'll just go refill the creamers. Brielle walked around the counter, wiping her hands on a towel. You didn't have to come here. I wanted to, she crossed her arms. Why? Orion leaned on the counter, eyes steady. I've been thinking about you. I wanted to see if I made it up. If what? The way it felt. Brielle's throat tightened. You're used to people chasing you, true, I'm not. I'm not chasing, he said. I'm asking. She drew in a breath. What do you want from me? He glanced at the case between them. A coffee. And an hour. She hesitated, then turned toward the back. Tasha, I'm taking my break. They sat at a corner table near the window, Brielle gripping her mug while Orion stirred his espresso with slow precision. I used to work in a bakery, he said, surprising her. She blinked. My uncle owned one in Queens, made me work summers there when I was 16. I hated waking up at 4. Brielle leaned forward. What did you do? Burned half the muffins. Learned how to slice bagels without losing a finger. Took home leftovers. She smiled despite herself. That doesn't sound like the man who owns a penthouse on Park Avenue, he shrugged. That kid still shows up sometimes. She looked down. Why me? Because you didn't ask for anything, you didn't perform. You didn't even know my name. I still don't know you. Then let me change that. A long pause stretched between them. I'm not a project, she said finally. I wouldn't insult you like that. And I'm not some novelty. Good, Orion said, setting down his spoon. I'm not looking for novelty. I'm looking for something real, she stared at him. Why now? Because I've spent the last 5 years building things people admire. I want something I actually feel. Brielle's fingers tightened around her cup. You don't even know if we'd work. We won't know unless we try. Before she could respond, the door jingled again. A man in a suit entered, scanned the room, and approached Orion. Sir, your meeting at the tower, reschedule it, Orion said without looking up. But I said reschedule. The man left without another word. Brielle's eyes narrowed. That was important, wasn't it? I don't care. You can't just throw your life around for a girl you met once. Orion's voice dropped. You think this is about recklessness, you're acting like it is. He leaned forward. I've met thousands of people, sat through hundreds of parties, I've had weeks blur together, but I remember every second I've spent with you. Her heart thudded. We kissed. That's it. It didn't feel like just that. Brielle stood, her chair scraping the floor. This is too much. I'll back off, Orion said softly. But I'm not going to pretend I didn't feel something. She walked to the counter, trying to breathe. He followed, slower this time. I'll leave you alone, he said. But if you ever want to see me again, don't wait. I won't be hard to find. He pressed a black card onto the counter. No name, just a number embossed in gold. She didn't touch it. Then he left. The door shut behind him with a soft click, and the bakery felt smaller without him. Tasha peeked around the corner. Did you just turn down a man who makes skyscrapers appear out of thin air? Brielle stared at the card. I don't know what I just did. Brielle stood in front of her apartment door, key frozen mid-air, still clutching the black card Orion had left at the bakery. She hadn't meant to bring it home, but somehow it ended up in her coat pocket. She stared at it as if it might vanish if she blinked too fast. She tucked it into the drawer beside her bed and turned away. It was a full 3 days before she saw him again. She'd just finished stacking a tray of macarons in the front display when the door opened, and a tall woman stepped inside, wearing a navy wool coat that looked like it cost more than Brielle's rent. Her heels clicked across the tile floor with practiced precision. I'm looking for Brielle Thompson, she said, eyes scanning the shop. Brielle stepped forward. That's me. The woman offered a clipped smile. I'm Alina. I work for Mr. Maddox. He's requested your presence at the Maddox Foundation's annual charity auction this evening. A car will be sent to pick you up at 6. Brielle blinked. Excuse me? He assumed you might not respond to the invitation directly. Alina opened a folder and slid a cream-colored envelope across the counter. He asked that I deliver this personally. Inside was a single card, elegant and understated, her name printed in gold ink followed by a simple message. Don't let fear make your choices. Brielle's stomach twisted. I can't just show up to something like that. You won't need to bring anything, Alina said. We've arranged everything. I didn't agree to anything. You're not obligated, but the car will still be waiting. By the time the woman left, Brielle's heart was racing. She stared at the invitation, then at the clock. It was nearly 3. She had 3 hours to decide whether she was going to wade deeper into a world that didn't belong to her, or pretend none of it had happened. At 6 o'clock the car was there, and somehow so was she. The driver opened the door to a sleek black town car and, without speaking, guided her through the city to an address she didn't recognize. They stopped in front of a limestone building with wrought iron balconies and ivy-twined columns. A stylist met her inside, leading her past a sweeping staircase to a room with racks of gowns, a team of quiet professionals, and a chair in front of a vanity lit like a Broadway dressing room. "I didn't say yes," Brielle said as a woman gently pinned up her hair. "You didn't say no," Alina replied from the doorway. A floor-length burgundy gown was brought forward, simple, modern, and unlike anything Brielle had ever worn. She stepped into it, her breath catching as the silk slid over her skin. By 7:30, she was in the back of another car, being driven to the Maddox Foundation Gala at the Grand Lyric Conservatory. She spotted him the moment she entered the ballroom. Orion stood near a marble staircase, wearing a tailored black suit with a silver tie. He was speaking to a group of donors, but the moment he saw her, he stopped mid-sentence. His face didn't change, but his eyes did. He crossed the room in long strides. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, stopping in front of her. "I wasn't sure either. I wasn't trying to push you. You just sent a driver, a stylist, and a gown. I was trying to make it easy to say yes." She looked around. "This place is not what I'm used to." "Neither am I." She raised an eyebrow. "That's not true." "I wasn't born here," he said. "I earned every inch of it. Doesn't mean I belong." She tilted her head. "Don't you?" He glanced around the room. "I have the money, the power, but when people look at me they don't see a person, they see an empire." Brielle's voice softened. "What do you want them to see?" "Someone worth loving." She didn't know how to respond to that. "I don't want you to feel like you're being pulled into something you didn't choose," he continued, "but I know what I felt that night. And I know I'm still feeling it." She hadn't expected to hear something so vulnerable in the center of a room glittering with wealth. Before she could answer, an older man approached, offering Orion a stiff handshake and pulling him into a conversation about expansion permits and zoning laws. Brielle stepped away, needing air. She found herself on a balcony overlooking the city. The cold nipped at her shoulders, but she didn't move. "Too much," came a voice behind her. She turned. Orion had followed. "I don't belong here," she said. "Neither do I," he replied. She gave a quiet laugh. "You're the reason this exists. I built it. Doesn't mean I fit inside it." He leaned on the railing beside her. "I've been in this life long enough to know who's real and who's rehearsed," he said. "You haven't rehearsed a single thing. Maybe because I don't know what I'm doing, or maybe you're just honest, and I've never wanted that more." She looked at him, the frost in the air turning his breath into steam. "I don't know how to be what people expect," she said. "Good," he said. "Be anything but that." She exhaled. He reached into his pocket and handed her something, a small silver key on a delicate chain. "What is this?" "I bought the old bakery on Mercer Street," he said. "The owner was retiring, figured it could use a new name, a new vision." She stared at the key. "You bought a bakery for you?" She looked up at him, stunned. "I don't want to change your life," he said. "I want to make space for it." Her fingers closed around the key. "What if I'm scared?" "Then be scared," he said. "But do it anyway." She stepped closer, the city lights glinting off the chain in her hand. "You're not asking me to fall in love with you." "No," he said. "I'm asking you to let it happen." When he kissed her this time, it wasn't tentative. It was deliberate and deep, like a promise. The kind that didn't ask for anything but truth, and Brielle felt herself leaning into it, not because she knew what came next, but because, for the first time, she wanted to find out. A week later, Brielle stood in the middle of the empty storefront on Mercer Street. The key Orion had given her warm in her palm. Afternoon light spilled through the tall windows. illuminating dusty floors, cracked tiles, and the faint scent of cinnamon still clinging to the walls from whatever bakery came before. The space was worn but not broken, like it had been waiting for someone to give it a second chance. Orion leaned against the far wall, sleeves rolled, watching her take it in. "I figured you'd want to see it for yourself before anyone touched a thing," he said. She turned slowly, heart thudding. "You didn't even ask if I wanted it. I didn't want to make you choose in front of strangers. But if you don't want it, I'll sell it by tomorrow." Brielle walked toward the counter, running her fingers along the weathered surface. "What if I fail? Then you get back up, and I'll be right here when you do." She glanced over her shoulder. "You're making this sound easy." "It's not easy," he said. "It's just yours." She looked down at the key again. "I don't want to owe you." "You don't," Orion said. "This isn't a favor. It's an investment in someone I believe in." Her breath caught. "You believe in me." He crossed the room, stopping just inches away. "I believe in your fire, your instincts, your ability to make something out of nothing. Most people only know how to inherit things. You know how to build." She studied him, the quiet certainty in his eyes more overwhelming than any lavish gesture. "I don't know what this is between us. I don't need it defined, I just need it real." Brielle's voice barely rose above a whisper. "And if I walk away from all of this?" He didn't flinch. "I'll still want you," she laughed softly. "You don't even know what you're signing up for. I've read balance sheets more complicated than your mood swings." She shook her head, but her lips curved. "You're confident." "I'm in love," he said. The words landed between them like a spark in dry grass. Brielle blinked. "You can't know that. I do. I knew it the second you stopped pretending you weren't terrified." She didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there while the walls of her caution cracked. "I wanted to be angry when you bought this place. I know. I thought you were trying to fix things that didn't need fixing. I was trying to give you space to grow." She looked up at him, all defenses gone. "I don't want to be something you collect." "You're not a trophy," he said. "You're the only thing in my life that wasn't planned and the only thing I'm not willing to lose." Her throat tightened. "I don't know how to live in your world. Then let's build one that fits both of us." She stepped forward and pressed her hand to his chest. "I'm scared." "I am too." He kissed her slow and certain, like he knew she wouldn't run this time, and she didn't. Weeks passed. The bakery reopened under a new name, Ember and Flour. The grand opening drew a crowd, not because of Orion's name but because of Brielle's. People came for her warmth, her creativity, her unapologetic stubbornness. She didn't let his money define the place. It was hers, every inch of it, from the reclaimed wood shelves to the handwritten menu board. Orion showed up most mornings, always early, always quiet. He never interfered. He simply sat near the window with black coffee and watched her move like she belonged there. One morning, as she wiped down a table, he stood and walked to the counter. "You busy tomorrow night?" he asked. She arched a brow. "Not unless the ovens catch fire again." He pulled something from his coat pocket and slid it across the counter, a small velvet box. She stared at it. "You're not about to do something reckless in the middle of my bakery, are you?" "I'm about to do something very well thought out," he said. "Though I do accept that your kitchen is an act of divine chaos." She opened the box slowly. Inside was a ring, Art Deco, vintage, delicate, not flashy, not loud, just beautiful. She looked up at him. "I don't want a wedding tomorrow," Orion said. "I want your yes and then your forever. We can figure out the rest one step at a time." Brielle didn't speak for a moment. Her fingers hovered over the ring, then curled into a fist. "You're not proposing because of guilt, are you? If I was, I'd have done it the night you fell on my sidewalk." She laughed, tears burning behind her eyes. "You're proposing because you love me." "I love you because you challenge me," he said. "And because you saw the man behind the name. You made me want more than I thought I deserved." Brielle whispered, "Yes." He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure you'll drive me insane at least twice a week," she said. "But yes." Orion leaned across the counter and kissed her soft, certain and full of every unspoken promise. Months later, they stood on a rooftop strung with lights, surrounded by the people who mattered most. There were no chandeliers, no ballrooms, no press. Just vows whispered between flower and firelight, and a kiss sealed beneath the stars. Brielle didn't slip this time, but Orion held her close anyway. The first snow of the season fell thick and fast, coating the sidewalks in white as Brielle stepped out of ember and flour, keys jingling in her gloved hand. The bakery windows glowed behind her, the last of the customers long gone, their laughter and crumbs lingering like warm echoes. Across the street, parked beneath a street lamp, Orion waited in his cobalt blue Aston Martin, leaning against the hood with his coat collar flipped up against the cold. "You're late," he said as she approached, his voice low but without irritation. "I had to close the espresso machine." Someone ordered 3 oat milk macchiatos at 5:45. "You're a menace when you're tired," she raised an eyebrow, "and you're too used to people jumping when you snap your fingers." He opened the passenger door for her. "That's why I married someone who doesn't." She slid in, the seat warm from the preheated interior. "Where are we going? You'll see." She narrowed her eyes. "No more surprise yachts. If there's a body of water involved, I'm out. No water. Just trust me." The car moved through the city, weaving past glowing storefronts and bundled pedestrians. The snow had slowed to a gentle drift, like the sky was catching its breath. "You've been quiet lately," Orion said after a while. "I've been thinking." His hand tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "About what?" "About expanding. I've been offered a spot in the new West End market. They want a pop-up version of the bakery." He glanced at her. "And? I don't know if I'm ready." "You are." She turned to him. "You didn't even hesitate. I've seen you handle chaos before breakfast. You're ready." Brielle looked out the window. "I like the bakery the way it is. You don't have to change the heart of it. Just let it breathe a little wider." She smiled. "That sounds like something you'd say to an architect." "I did, once, when I was 26 and terrified of building anything that might fall." "And did it fall?" He paused. "Not the building. Just the person I was back then." They pulled into a private drive, winding up a hill cloaked in snow-covered pines. At the top stood a modern glass house, lights glowing from within, smoke curling gently from a chimney. Brielle turned to him slowly. "Whose house is that?" "Ours." Her mouth parted. "What do you mean?" He killed the engine. "I've been working on it for months. I didn't want to show you until it was finished." She stepped out, boots crunching softly in the snow. The house was perched at the edge of a ridge with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the city skyline far below. A wraparound deck circled it like an embrace. "You built this." He joined her beside the car. "With a team, but every detail was for you." She turned toward him, stunned. "Why?" "Because I knew you'd never ask for it," he said. "But I also knew you deserved it." They walked inside, the door opening to a warm, open space filled with soft golden light and the scent of cedar. The walls were lined with bookshelves, the kitchen built around a stone hearth, and in the center of the living room, a long oak table stood surrounded by mismatched chairs. Brielle walked slowly through it all, fingertips grazing surfaces, her breath catching at the subtle touches. A vintage espresso machine on the counter, a framed sketch of her bakery hung quietly above the fireplace, a hand-thrown ceramic bowl filled with lemons sitting on the sill. "I didn't want it to feel like a mansion," Orion said behind her. "I wanted it to feel like a story we could keep writing." She turned, eyes still wide. "I can't believe you did this." "I wanted a home with you," he said, "not just a place. And I didn't want you to feel like you had to give up anything to have it." She crossed the space between them, standing on her toes to kiss him. "You didn't build this for me," she whispered. "You built it for us." He rested his forehead against hers. "Exactly." They spent the evening curled up in front of the fire, the snow falling outside in silent waves. Brielle tucked her feet beneath her, Orion's arm heavy and comforting around her shoulders. "I think I'll take the West End spot," she said softly. He looked down at her. "You sure?" "Yes. But on my terms, and with cinnamon madeleines instead of macarons," he grinned. "You're going to cause a riot. That's the goal." Later, as the fire dimmed and the city shimmered below like a sea of stars, she turned toward him. "Did you ever think your life would look like this?" he considered. "I thought it would be impressive. I didn't think it would be full." Brielle rested her cheek against his chest. "Mine was always loud, but it never felt this warm." He kissed her hair. "Then let's keep it that way." Winter melted into spring, and Ember and Flower opened its second location in the West End Market with a line out the door and a cinnamon sugar scent that carried down the block. Brielle ran both locations with precision and flair, training her staff like she was composing a symphony, each person a note, each pastry a chord. Orion rarely missed a Friday morning visit. Sometimes he brought contracts to review, sometimes just himself. But he always left with Flower on his sleeve and a story to tell. At home, they filled the walls with memories. Polaroids, scribbled recipes, postcards from weekend trips. They fought about paint colors, danced in the kitchen when no music played, and built a life that belonged entirely to them, layered, imperfect, and fiercely alive. One sun-drenched afternoon, Brielle stood barefoot in the kitchen, rolling dough at the island, humming under her breath. Orion walked in holding a bouquet of wildflowers, his tie loosened, cheeks flushed from the drive. "You didn't have to bring those," she said, brushing Flower off her hands. "I know," he replied, placing them in a mason jar, "but I wanted to." She turned, smiling softly. "Why?" He kissed her temple. "Because I fall in love with you all over again every time I walk through that door." And in that quiet, golden-lit kitchen, with bread rising in the oven and snowdrops blooming in the yard, Brielle knew she had everything she never dared to ask for. Not because she followed a path someone else paved, but because she built her own. And Orion Maddox, billionaire, builder, and the man who once caught her on a frozen sidewalk, chose to walk every step of it beside her.